Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a shot of some girl like contorting herself.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And that shit ain't scary because that shit ain't real.
Right.
I mean, dude, this stuff has been investigated. Exorcisms, haunted houses, all that crap. I mean, stuff is bunk.
Hmm.
Like, people have gone
It's
to
baloney.
exorcism.
It's
Yeah,
baloney.
people have gone to exorcisms and investigated this stuff. This is what drives me nuts about people who believe this stuff like wholeheartedly. It's like they've done investigations. There are skeptics who have actually gone and like attended exorcisms. They've looked at haunted houses. They've spent nights in haunted houses. They've done studies. They've put the claims to the test.
They've put
They've
them.
put the feet
They
they put
have
the feet to the fire.
no, dude. They exorcised the claims.
Yeah.
They
Good
exorcised
one,
them. They
Edward.
took the demons out.
Nice.
They took the
Um
demons out of the exorcisms.
right. And nothing, dude. Nothing. It yields no results.
Hmm.
There are multiple um uh foundations around the globe throughout this country alone
Hmm.
that have offered $1 million prizes to anybody who can demonstrate the supernatural.
Hmm.
None of these prizes have been given away.
Yeah.
Not one. Why? I actually, dude, I spoke to somebody on Reddit, which is never a good way to start a sentence.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Um yeah, go ahead.
Somebody should record a video of themselves, like, just like themselves, just like this, like you and I are looking at each other right now,
Yeah.
farting, and then the fart happens, and they go like, "Where did it come from? where, did, where did it come from?" And then again, like,
Yeah, right.
"Poop." And then it's like, "What happened?" And then they should submit that as proof of the supernatural.
But that's all supernatural claims. That's everyone's ghost story is like, I felt an itch. It was a ghost.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, dude, I saw there was a Reddit thread which I've been wanting to talk about this topic for a couple weeks now.
Uh-huh.
There was this Reddit thread and pause for a second before we get too far off. That Exorcist movie is going to be directed by David Gordon Green.
Really? Oh, that's interesting, man. They should have opened up with that before I clowned all over it.
Yeah,
No,
that's
that's
how I feel about
no,
that.
that's interesting. Just out of him being an alum from the same school we went from, I'll give him a shot. Although the past 3 movies he's made, which is the past 3 Halloween movies, from what I understand, have all sucked ass.
Halloween Kills was awful, and I didn't see Halloween Ends, and
Yeah,
not a priority.
yeah.
Back to what I was saying about ghosts. To close out one tangent and continue another.
Mhm.
The Reddit post that I'm looking at, right? It's like the topic was what convinced you of the supernatural, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm looking through them, and I'm like, okay, I'm expecting to get some like I actually was listening because you could actually listen to Reddit threads on YouTube because there's
Yeah.
like voices that'll read them.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to it in the car at night. This was a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be creepy, right? And dude, the first story is someone. They're like, the story basically amounts to, I worked at a pool closed. I'm in the office of the pool, right? Like the little lifeguard area, the little lifeguard office or whatever. And I hear a pitter patter of feet and a little kid laughing. And I go out and there's no little kid. No one was in the pool. It was closed.
Yeah.
Ghost. It's like, that
It was a
is what
ghost.
convinced you?
Yeah.
There are that's the problem. That's the thing. That's why we need skepticism, because it's like you haven't ruled out every other possible explanation.
Right.
That's the issue with supernatural claims, right? Claim of someone being demon possessed. Have you ruled out mental illness? Have you ruled out That's pretty much it. Mental illness.
Right.
Have you ruled out lying? Have you ruled out faking it? Right. That's the problem, is people don't rule out natural explanations.
Right.
Because that's the only thing we can explore is the natural world.
Right.
As far as I know, and as far as most people know, it seems, we have no ability to explore the supernatural world.
Right.
Despite what, Charles Manson used to say in the interviews about how he was exploring the spirit world
Right.
in his jail cell.
Yeah. Whatever it is that he was doing. Is that guy alive?
Oh, God. No, he died a few years ago, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I remember it was in the news. Died in prison. How much of a loss?
Yeah, no, not much of a loss at all.
No, not at all. Yeah, that's the problem with supernatural claims. That's why your fart thing is actually not that far off. Like that's like every ghost story that anyone tells me. Like I love talking with people about their ghost stories. I have ghost stories, right? But I don't believe they were ghosts. That's the only difference, right? Like I actually, what I like to tell people is I've seen a ghost, but I don't believe in ghosts.
Right.
Right. And people are like, what? And I'm like, because I don't think it was actually a ghost, right? There's other explanations that are real easy. The problem, like the pool story, it's like, okay, you think there's any way, right? You're at a pool, right? I'm assuming you're in a neighborhood. Did you ever think that it's at night, you're in a neighborhood, there's adjacent streets to the pool?
Yeah.
Don't you think a kid was just probably running around in their bare feet in front of their house, and it echoed, and you heard it from the office? Then you go out and look at the pool, and there's no little kid because the little kid was down the street. Yeah. But that's the problem. It's the same with like their Loch Ness monster claims, where people are like, "I saw a wake, and there were no boats." It's like, so. That is your conclusion. So your conclusion is Loch Ness monster.
Right.
Huge leap, right?
Right.
That's the problem with paranormal and supernatural claims, including exorcisms, which is how this got started.
Right.
And that's why, I recently I watched a video on Friday, I think. Dr. Todd Grande, who's a psychologist, he made a video about the Amityville horror, like the true story about the Amityville horror. That shit is bunk, dude. That shit's garbage. Like that is a hoax, dude. The movie, the Amityville Horror, came out I think 2 years after the actual events happened. You know why? Because right after the alcoholic parents left the house, they found a screenwriter in Hollywood, and according to the screenwriter, during the meeting, they went through 4 bottles of wine. And their imaginations just went wild. Their
imaginations went wild.
But people don't, that's the problem. People don't look into this stuff. They hear the Amityville Horror and, that's based on true events. And wow, yeah, man, that house must be haunted. No, people have lived at 112 Ocean Avenue, the site of the Amityville Horror, since then. And they've reported nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, I wouldn't live in that house.
Yeah.
But... But
still, yeah.
On the off chance, because I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying ghosts don't exist, but I'm saying there's issues with all the claims that they do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's not that much to say after that, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because your whole thing with the fart, like. I remember a while back talking to someone on Reddit. It was like in the Left Hand Path subreddit.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, the Left Hand Path is like a spiritual movement that encompasses like Satanism, Luciferianism, Setianism. It's the darker pagan practices, right? I'm not. Again, you can. I'm not.
Jake reveals himself.
Right.
Jake shows his hand.
I like some of the philosophies, but again, I'm not, and I'm a spiritual person, so I take some of the principles and the meditations and stuff, but I definitely don't. I'm definitely skeptical. I actively don't believe in the more paranormal stuff. But there was someone in there claiming like that they have seen demons and that they can turn skin into gold and that they can walk on water. And I'm like, there's foundations, right? That that'll pay you $1 million if you can show them that you can turn skin into gold or walk on water, right? Like, this is not believable at all.
It's one of those things where it's like, I have the supernatural powers, but if you're recording me or if you're witnessing the powers with the wrong intentions, the powers sense your intentions and then they won't manifest themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's every religion. Every religion and all paranormal claims and stuff like that are they call that unfalsifiability, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unfalsifiable. Like you can't. But the problem with unfalsifiable claims is if you can't falsify it, you also can't
claim it as true.
Verify it either. Yeah. If you can't falsify it, you can't verify it either. It goes both ways. So that's the thing. So like claims about the afterlife, it's unfalsifiable because no one can come back from the dead and say and verify it. Like, yep, it's true.
Yeah.
Like heaven exists or whatever.
Yeah.
People have said they have, but we know, neuroscience knows why that can't happen, and we won't even get into near-death experiences. But
I had for some reason yesterday, I thought the Oscars were yesterday. Like, I woke up today and there was people were sharing memes about some kind of award show.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about this. There was this really awkward award show where this lady was performing a song and dance, and in the song and dance she was incorporating just saying nice things about the nominees, and people were sharing it just as a goofy thing. And I was like, "Were the Oscars yesterday?" So do the Oscars matter so little that they were yesterday? I did not know that this happened. They were not yesterday. Apparently they're in a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Because I went to see what was trending in the news, and the Oscars weren't trending, and I was like, "Oh, the Oscars don't matter," because that video that I saw literally looked like it was the Oscars, and because I didn't see it trending, I was like, "People don't care about this shit anymore," because all these award shows just kind of happen in the background these days. The Grammys happened a week and a half ago, and I have no idea who won anything. The only thing I know about it is that people were upset about Sam Smith's performance because he was full of devil imagery, and people got really up in arms about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, the awards get given out. What happened? No, nothing's been given out apparently.
Yeah, I see, dude. There's a lot of stuff that I've seen, which I need to unfriend some people on Facebook. But yeah, just stuff, locals, of course, down in the Bible Belt, just posting stuff about, oh my gosh, Satan is active in our world with these, images, and in the Rihanna's performance too, and Sam Smith's performance, and Satan is meddling in our world. Sure, and the Night King is coming back to conquer Westeros, and Thanos is coming back for the Infinity Stones. But guys, get a grip, Jesus Christ! Yeah. Satan, get a grip on reality, man.
Snap back to reality. Whoop, the goat's grabbing.
God, the rapture is happening soon. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sam Smith is one of the three horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Sure. Yeah. It also says, I believe, in one of the books of the Bible that I think either Rome or Babylon will be in power when the rapture happens. So yeah, you're about 2,000 to 3,000.
We're far away from that.
Yeah, you're 2,000 years late on that one, guys. Speaking of which, another exorcism movie is coming out.
Really? We talked about this last week.
With Russell Crowe. It's called The Pope's Exorcist.
Russell Crowe will do anything these days. anything.
Dude, is there an actor that has made worse casting choices in the past few years?
Yeah.
Like, I
Think
don't
so,
think
but
so.
I think Russell Crowe. I think a lot of. I think with him, I think he went into like debt. And I also think he had like some health issues. And I also believe that the thing with him is that he garnered like a really bad reputation for being kind of like an asshole or something like that.
Oh, did
Like,
he?
I don't know if you know this. There is like a South Park episode where they make like a caricature out of him, where the whole episode is like about how Russell Crowe goes to places and fights people. You know, that's what the whole thing is about. And he has like a boat, like 'cause I think he's Australian. So the character in the show has like an Australian accent, and he has like this little boat that follows him everywhere. And the boat also like it's like an animated character, and he just fights people and gets into brawls. And I believe that's actually stuff that he used to do. Like if you go into his Wikipedia, you'll see him.
Yeah.
And if you Google like Russell Crowe police, you will see pictures of the police like arresting him.
Police. Oh,
He's
God.
like wearing like sunglasses.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. He looks like Sabretooth kind of in these photos, like
Looking at
Wolverine's
it.
brother.
Yeah. There he's wearing the sunglasses. Yeah, there he is. There's Russell Crowe. These images were like infamous at the time.
My
Like, when
God.
this happened, this was like infamous because apparently like that's like a thing. I think it's like died down. That used to be a thing in New York. They would call it like the perp walk or something like that, where they would just walk you out. They would like just walk you out in public. With the
Yeah.
handcuffs. That was like a public like shaming thing. I don't think they do that anymore because I think they got sued. But I think this is like one of the most high profile like perp walks. It's just Russell Crowe. But off of this, South Park started making jokes about him and him beating up people and stuff. It
Oh,
says
God.
Russell Crowe arrested for assault of a hotel clerk. He was just beating people up, man.
Jesus.
Yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, so I actually haven't even watched the trailer for this exorcism thing, but apparently it's like based on true real life claims, we'll say.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's based portrayal of a real life figure, Father Gabriel Amorth, a priest who acted as a chief exorcist of the Vatican, who performed more than 100,000 exorcisms. Okay, all right. Yep, sounds legit. Yeah. I mean, I saw the headline. I'm like, who gives a shit? Honestly.
Yeah,
Another exorcism movie. It's
yeah.
so weird. They're so popular in the U.S.
Yeah, yeah,
But they know that Christians, I guess, will go see them or
yeah.
something. Um,
There's like a really big market for exorcism movies. Who want to see them?
so
Everybody
here's the
has this
thing.
biblical fear, They all want to be like, oh man, I want to see them get exorcised.
Right.
I want to hear them do a voice. I want to hear them overlay 3 voices. But it
Yeah.
sounds like it's the devil because it's like I will, we will, we, like what I'm
Yeah.
talking about when they do that. They
Oh
make it sound
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
like
It's
3
like
people
3
talking at the same
voices.
time.
Yeah, where
Yeah,
it's just like, I have come to
yeah.
enact the apocalypse.
Yeah,
Whatever.
but it's always like really extreme too. It's always like it's
Yeah.
always like somebody speaking with their throat.
Yeah.
It's always like really like unsettling. Those voices are unsettling. You gotta give it to them.
So what I find
That's
really
that's the appeal, man. That's what people go there for.
yeah, what I find really dumb about the actual, portrayals of exorcisms too is like I feel like if demons were real, so they're supposed to be fallen angels, right? Wouldn't they be a lot? I feel like they would be a lot more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, they're
You
just
know,
like
like
screaming things.
yeah, like if I were a demon, right, and I went to possess somebody, wouldn't you? So first of all, right, like if I go to possess, if I tried to possess you, right, Edward, and I'm a demon, right, I go to possess you, I would first learn your mannerisms and everything. Like, wouldn't you want to possess someone without people knowing that you're possessing them.
Yeah, no, you would
Like,
want to be a skin crawler. You would want to be like the guy from that movie Starstruck.
I'm not sure what that is.
The
Starstruck.
guy from Sunny with a Chance of Me. Sunny with a Chance.
Oh, oh yeah.
What's his
Oh,
name?
yeah,
What's
the
his
Disney
name?
Channel guy.
Yeah, the Disney Channel guy. That guy's a skin crawler.
Why do people say that?
Yeah.
What is this? Starstruck movie. Sterling Knight. Oh God, yeah, he looks like a nightmare. What the hell? Why do people say that about him? Is it because of what I just said?
Yeah.
Am I an asshole?
Oh jeez. This is it. Oh jeez.
Wait, Sterling. What is this? Sterling Knight Skinwalker? Oh yeah,
Skinwalker. It auto fails.
Oh yeah, because people believe
Yeah.
in yeah, people believe in skinwalkers and shit too.
Yeah. And that guy, not so much now because he's like filled up. Like he's like a little bit like he's got meat on him. Before when he was just like really like just like skin and bones, he looked like a skinwalker.
Oh my God, yeah, dude, he looks really creepy actually, man.
Yeah.
Those eyes, I don't know, I
Yeah.
never noticed it when I was a kid, but these
Yeah.
photos, wow, yeah, he looks scary, dude. He looks like a
Yeah.
scarecrow.
Yeah.
In these older pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
'Cause
you're
I
right.
remember
Though.
seeing a post. I remember seeing a post just along the lines of like the fact that Disney try to make this skin crawler into like
Oh my God.
into like some kind of like heartthrob or something.
Oh Jesus. Oh God. Yeah. So
That guy's possessed by the wish. What the fuck is the name of the movie?
Wishmaster. God.
The Wishmaster.
You need to make 3 wishes, Edward. Oh God. Wait, I'm gonna send. Wait, let me see if I can send you this photo. Oh yeah, dude. Okay, I'm about to send this in general. Go look at this.
Oh jeez.
Jesus Christ.
I'm afraid to go look in there because I think I might leave the podcast.
No, go look. General.
What if I leave the chat? Let me see.
No, you're
It
not.
says-
You're not. If you just
saying,
hit general
looks like you're
text
in
channels,
Okay, let me see. Oh, text
very
channels.
top
Okay.
one.
Okay, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that's a picture I was looking at.
Oh God.
That's a picture I was looking at. I'm gonna remove that from my photos. Man. I don't want to see that. Delete message.
Oh
Delete.
God.
I just whenever I go here, I want to see the Virgin Stuart Little and the Shad Remy. That's what I'm here for.
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that.
That's what I'm here. That's what I go to the chat for.
But yeah, so anyway, if
Mhm.
I'm a demon, right? Like so this is what I would do, right? I want to do some damage, right? You're my mark, Edward. I want to possess you, right? So I'd learn all
Mhm.
your mannerisms and everything, right? I would perfect all of your mannerisms, then I go possess you, right? And I don't know if that's, what's all the screaming and writhing and all that? Is that just during the act of the possession when the demon's trying to take over? Is that why that's happening? Okay, so that happens, right? I could chalk that up to like a nervous breakdown, right?
Mhm.
So now I'm in you, right? And I'm you. Well, I would just start going around, and you could really cause some damage if you're like possessing somebody, right?
Mhm.
And you're and you're keeping you're keeping your cool and not going, bitch, fuck, shit, cunt, like every 5 seconds.
Well, that's
like
where it's interesting.
like the girl in Exorcist, right?
Oh,
like this
but,
just doesn't make any sense,
but that's where it's interesting to where it's interesting, like I think there's a movie, I forget the name of it. You probably know what I'm talking about, but it's like The Possession of Emily Rose or something like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, where I feel like it's more interesting. I think that's what this movie does. I don't know. I've seen parts of it. But I feel like it's more interesting to actually examine human being who just like committed a crime or did certain things or they have like no recollection of it or something like that as being like, whoa, let's examine this as like a case of some kind of demonic possession. That makes more sense, like you said, of being like, oh, of like you yourself could be like, you could commit a crime and then you'll be like, I don't know what happened, I was possessed, I have no recollection. And somebody like me would vouch for you and be like, yeah, like what happened? He must have been possessed.
Right,
I feel like
right.
that's more interesting than the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Trying
And
to
with the
explain something unexplained, as like some kind of demonic possession thing.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so and the thing is, I mean, the real life case of Emily Rose, I mean, they like that girl died. I mean, they starved. I think they starved that poor girl or something because they thought she was
Mm,
possessed by the devil.
mm,
I mean, this is these beliefs do it was her real name wasn't even Emily Rose. It was Annalise Michelle.
mm, mm.
But yeah, I mean, I believe that they yes, so she died in her home. The autopsy report stated the cause of death as malnutrition and dehydration, resulting from almost a year in a state of near starvation while the rites of
Wow.
exorcism were performed. I mean, guys,
Wow,
like,
that's ridiculous.
yeah, this is fucking ridiculous. This poor girl
That's
probably had
absolutely ridiculous. But that's the thing, like
this
making a movie
poor
about that
girl
is
had
like
like
fascinating.
yeah, I mean, this poor girl had psychosis. I mean, she was
Yeah.
prescribed antipsychotic drugs. It's awful, man. And you're trying to like you're trying to starve a demon out, and
No, the
you just
family is
starve this
completely
poor
at
girl.
fault for that. Yeah.
That's awful,
Ridiculous.
man.
That's ridiculous. But ignorance gets you.
Yeah, yeah. It just I don't know, man. I don't.
Don't
It's,
make no sense.
no, it doesn't. That
Yeah,
Chief Keef
no.
song, shit don't make no
Yeah, no.
sense.
Well, that's pretty ridiculous, man.
But yeah, that's the thing though. I really do think if demons were real, I don't think they'd if I'm a being that's older than time, I'm gonna be
Mm.
talking like in an upper class accent. Like it's gonna be talking like Pinhead in
Yeah.
Hellraiser. It's gonna
But
be
dude, like
refined and eloquent.
yeah.
It's not gonna be like
And we're getting into that with
like
like
a
the
million
Wishmaster,
year
which
old being.
yeah,
Yeah.
like with the Wishmaster, that was my impression of him too. Where I was like, oh, this guy's really finely spoken.
Yeah.
He's got some
Exactly.
pizzazz on him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so stupid, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's
what's the
the
easiest
least
thing to
resistance?
worship or the easiest
Exactly.
thing to cling on to? Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, there's certain preachers and shit that I've heard, unfortunately, had the displeasure of hearing talk, and I mean, they've said like, "Oh, aliens would completely, in my mind, disprove God," in their mind, and of
Mm.
course, there's a lot of people who would, you know, keep their faith. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I actually agree with the preachers that you know. I don't agree with their religion, but
But do you agree that it like invalidates the religion?
I totally agree with that because think about it. I mean, you have this God who's supposed to be like this, this man. I mean, not a
Mhm.
man, but he's like human like,
He's
and
a
he made
man
us in
boy.
his image. It's and then if there are other intelligent, sentient life forms on other planets, it's like, well, where do they fall into that? And in the Bible, it seems very explicit in the fact that like Earth is sort of the center of maybe not the physically the center of the universe, but it's the center of it's the hot spot. It's where
Right.
everything takes place in the Bible. It's
Right.
and the beginning it talks about how the earth was made, and then in
Right.
Revelation it talks about how the earth is gonna end. And
There's no point within it in which God, that's like an instant teleportation technique, like Goku, and tries to like, oh, this is dynamic planet, and now I'm here with dynamics, and
yeah,
yeah,
because they didn't
there's
even know
no
what planets
like
were back then. It's like they just thought we lived on some floating pancake on
yeah.
a if you look at Hebrew cosmology, I mean the way they thought it was we lived on this flat surface on
Mhm,
top of water, and then there
mhm.
was like a dome around everything. Which I mean, if you look up at the sky and you lie on your back and you look up at the sky, it does look like a dome. So
Mhm.
you can see how ancient people thought that, and then like you literally just
Exactly.
opened the dome and there was heaven above it.
Yeah, but it's fascinating because also just depending on where you live, if you get that feeling of like there's like a dome feeling. Because
Yeah.
let's say, for instance, like I think whenever I like travel overseas, it feels a lot that way. You know,
Yeah.
it feels like, oh shit, the sky suddenly feel in this country, the sky is even more dome-like. It feels like
Yeah.
it's just like that. You know, um, yeah.
But so yeah, and like for me,
Not
not
ever.
even aliens. You know what? For me, the smoking gun, to me, that invalidates religion even more than aliens, but at least
Hmm.
Christianity for me
Hmm.
is the fucking existence of other species of humans that
Hmm.
have gone extinct. Neanderthals, um, Australopithecus, that was like an early human.
Hmm.
I mean, all those different. There were all these different species of human, and we're the Homo sapiens are the only ones left. But like that disproves to me. That's like okay, that fucking invalidates an Adam and Eve because there's
Hmm.
no point where if you know how evolution works, evolution is like Richard Dawkins, I think, described it this way, but pretty much all scientists will tell you that the way evolution is, if you look at the fossil record and the way it works, is like there's no, it's sort of like with a human where you're growing and it's like you have a baby that grows into a toddler. There's no one
Hmm.
moment where it's like, okay, this baby is now a toddler.
Hmm.
It's just gradual. Like there's
Let me ask
really
you.
no cutoff. So with that being said, there's no fucking Adam and Eve.
Hmm.
If if
Let me
if
ask you
you if you
this.
look at it on a macro level with species, but go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Would you experiencing like a supernatural event transform you into some kind of belief system? For
um
let me explain.
yeah, go ahead.
By natural event, I mean like if you interacted with like a ghost, how would
Mhm.
you feel about it?
It would just depend on how much information I could draw from it, you know?
Mhm.
It would depend on how accurately I could explain what I had seen.
In my head, I'm thinking that in my head, I'm thinking that you like interact with the ghost, and at some point, you're like, "Oh my god, you're a ghost," and the ghost is like, "I'm a ghost," and then at some point, somebody walks into the room and they look at you, and they go like, "Jake, what's all of this all over the room?" And you just go like, "Oh, it's ectoplasm."
Ectoplasm. Like in South Park. Oh, there's a spooky ghost. Yeah, I mean, if it was like the movie Ghost and there was just like I don't know, but even in that scenario though, like if I was living out the movie Ghost, I mean, I would actually be more inclined to think I was mentally ill, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's just too many problems because we don't have the ability to because people claim all sorts of these things and no matter how vivid your experience is, we just can't verify your experience when it comes to the supernatural. Like if I
Mhm.
say I experienced, you know, if I show up or if I get airlifted to a hospital and I say,
Mhm.
or someone else more likely says a truck hit him, but let's say I'm conscious and I say a car hit me, we can
Mhm.
verify my experience because first of all, we know cars exist. We can
Okay.
see the injuries on my body,
Mhm.
and we can. There's a thousand different ways we can investigate. Maybe there's cameras around. Maybe there's tire tracks that maybe the driver stopped. It's like we can investigate that experience. But if I say, "Hey, I heard the voice of God
Mhm.
in my head," or
Mhm.
I'll just stick to your example. I saw a ghost and I talked
Mhm.
to it and I verified that it was a ghost because I stuck my hand through the person,
Mhm.
it's like I could tell other people that about that experience, but they have no way to verify my experience. And in turn, me personally, I have no way to verify whether what I saw was a ghost or if I'm going fucking nuts.
Right.
That's the problem. So to answer your question, um, maybe, but I would be more inclined to think I needed to get on some medication.
Now, let me ask you this. If we were to obtain something verifiable, right? like if somehow we had like undisputable footage of some kind of like um ghost activity, do you think that that would be enough to convince people of like the existence of like the supernatural, or the existence of like a higher entity, or like an afterlife or something like that?
No, because we already have videos of ghosts. Like we
What do you mean?
have well, we have videos of ghosts. If you go look up videos of ghosts, you're gonna find videos of ghosts all over the internet, bro.
Exactly, but those videos of ghosts also just have a comment from somebody being like fake, you know?
Well, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly.
What I'm saying to you is that
How do
it's
we
like, what
verify
if,
it's a ghost?
exactly, but what I'm saying to you is like, what if we had something where it's like, I mean, I wouldn't know like how to like necessarily like describe it, but what if we had some kind of like live footage that everybody was watching at the same time, you
Yeah,
know, like a fucking football game or something.
yeah.
And in the middle of the stadium as they're playing football, it's like, oh my God, what the fuck is that thing? There's like a ghost, you know.
Hmm.
Somebody runs right through it, everybody stops and look at it and then just disappears. And it's like, oh, you know, that wasn't a hoax. It was actually like some kind of thing that happened.
Yeah, and you have 80,000 people that saw a ghost.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard because then it's like, fuck, dude.
Because I feel like with that, I feel like that wouldn't necessarily, I guess, confirm the existence of like a higher entity. I guess it would just, I guess, give us some kind of something to think about the
And
afterlife, and being
yeah.
like, oh, I guess maybe when humans die, something happens to that. Maybe some humans linger around here in a non-physical form or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing with yeah, I mean, ghosts wouldn't even that's the thing with skepticism too. It's like you can't make leaps, you just have to. So if we learned that ghosts were real, it'd be
Mhm.
like therefore ghosts are real. You know, we can't then say, "Oh, then there's a god." It's like, "No, fuck." You know, that's but people would say that. That's the problem.
Right.
People would make that leap and say, "Therefore God exists because the
Mhm.
supernatural exists." It's like, "Well, no." You know, we don't. But in your scenario, I mean, so and in your scenario, do we know for a fact, like let's just set up a parameter here. Do we know for a fact that no one that the technicians in the stadium aren't projecting a hologram or something?
Yeah, we know that for a
We
fact.
know that for a fact in this scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess 80,000 people and we all saw a ghost in the stadium and it appeared and then disappeared. Um, I think all we could say is that it was some sort of entity that was there, but a ghost is a person who died, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So
And
then it
in
would
that
have to be
case, it's like, well,
identified.
this could
Yeah.
be a superhuman. It doesn't even have to be, we don't know that it's a dead
Yeah.
person that came back to life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just
But
opens
it's
so
hard
many
because
more
I think there's
questions.
there's
Yeah.
people that are like rolling their eyes probably listening to this, like, oh my God, Jake's such like a doubting Thomas. And it's like, well, yeah, this is how science works. It's like you can't just verification takes a long fucking time. I mean, we've
Yeah.
been making adjustments to modern science for 1,000 years. You know.
Mhm.
Um, what about you, man? I mean, like, what would convince you? I guess of ghosts existing besides that scenario, or do you
I
believe in
don't know, man,
ghosts?
because it's like I'm in the position where I feel like don't want to see ghosts, and I do, like in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
You know, I have that curiosity of being like, oh, I would love to have some kind of supernatural, like, you know, experience. Never had one. Met many people who claim they have. You
yeah,
know, it's kind of a thing where I come from.
yeah.
These are one of these are you know fucking one a dozen people. You know, like or whatever the saying is. You
There's
know,
phantasmas, bro.
exactly. There's a lot of phantasmas. So that's like common for people to be like, "Oh, I stole my great grandma" and shit like that. Um, something that I feel like would be maybe positive towards kind of having some kind of revelation with something like that for me. Because like you, I feel like if I had some kind of experience like that, I'll be like, "Oh, I might be losing my mind," you know,
Yeah,
or you know, or there would be something like, "Oh, I'm sleep deprived, I'm hallucinating, or something's happening," you
right.
know. But I feel like if I had an experience like that, say that I had an experience like that, and it was like me with like my siblings, you know, or like me and you know, it's like, well, we both saw that thing. Then it's like, well, we both cannot be hallucinating, unless we
Right.
both something funky, you know.
Exactly.
Um, so I feel like there's relevance in like a group experience of being like, did we all witness the same thing? Yes, we did. Then there's something going on, you know, because we know that the brain in and of itself, the brain can play games on people. Because I've had you know, history with like fucking sleep paralysis and like very vivid dreams, you
Yeah.
know, where I've had kind of like wake states of seeing things. And obviously from that I know that the brain can really just play with you. And you could just be sleeping and
Exactly.
unable to move with your eyes open, and your brain thinks you're sleeping, but your eyes are open, and so your brain's creating things that you're seeing, you know. So it's strange. Like the human experience is strange, man.
Yeah,
You know.
and you misreport things, you misremember. Like people
Hmm.
get confused easily. That's the whole thing with the Loch Ness monster. I mean, you can just imagine being a fisherman on that lake. You know, you're a fisherman and you fucking yeah, this is how I provide, you know, a fucking fish and a drink on the lake. No.
I
Um
saw a big fish.
yeah. No, but you can imagine being some fisherman on the lake and you're just surrounded by this fucking behemoth, you know, lake, this freaking endless
Hmm.
ocean of water.
Hmm.
And some huge ass fish breaks the surface for a second.
Hmm.
And then you're like, fuck, 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 you know, and then 10 minutes later, you have a memory of, you know, a plesiosaur head breaking the surface, you know, but it wasn't that. You're just misremembering, you know. But because you've been conditioned of Loch Ness monster, plesiosaur lives there, then your mind starts filling in gaps that it need not fill, basically, but it
Is there
does.
is there a theory of what could be like what is there a theory of like a big fish that could be on that lake that actually exists, you know, or that it's actually plausible?
Yeah, I think big fish do have been confirmed to be in that lake, like huge fish. I mean,
Hmm.
biggest fish in Loch Ness. Um, and I mean, by the way, you know, the Loch Ness monster, though, I will say it's not impossible because we
Hmm.
have found prehistoric animals thought to be extinct before.
Hmm.
People out there, if you want to look that up, it's called the coelacanth, and that's a species of fish that we thought was extinct. And I think in like the 20s we found it. Um, let me see, biggest fish in Loch Ness. The largest fish caught by rod in Loch Ness is a 44-pound salmon. I mean, Loch Ness Monster Hunter concludes it's a big catfish, 13 feet. A Wells catfish, European catfish, can grow up to 13 feet.
I think it's
Yeah,
huge.
it's a big ass fish, dude. Victorians introduced the fish to the dark waters of the loch to provide
That's a
sport.
humongous catfish.
Exactly. So it's like we already know. There's your monster right
I
there.
mean, this thing's gigantic. Look at that guy. He looks tiny.
Yeah, 13
Mm.
feet. I mean, that's unbelievable, dude. So, yeah, and I think, you know, you're right with the whole mind playing tricks on you with ghosts. I mean, dude, I think I said this on a previous episode, but like I always tell people, I don't believe in ghosts and I've seen ghosts.
Mhm.
Like I've seen ghosts, you know, but I
Yeah.
don't think they were actually ghosts, you know. I may have told this story before, but I remember in when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I was having it was during October, and I was having just kind of anxiety from watching too many horror movies, I think.
As it goes.
Yeah, and I remember because at that age, I would catch like horror movies on AMC, and then I'd fucking regret it after because you know they're always playing in October.
Mhm.
And I remember waking up at you know, like 6 in the morning to catch the bus, and I turn the light on, and I'm laying in bed just kind of like out of it, you know, and I look at my door, and it's just pitch dark. The hallway's pitch dark outside. And I see for a split second, I kind of blinked and I saw a little girl in like a dirty gown
Mhm.
walk by my room, you
It's the
know?
classic one.
Exactly.
It's a little girl one.
But it's like, even if ghosts existed, even if we knew ghosts existed, that house, nobody died there. We watched it built. We bought the land before,
Yeah,
while the house was still being built.
yeah,
um, so you know, but yeah, people get confused. I mean, dude, if someone paid me to go spend the night at the Amityville house, I'd see ghosts, dude. I wouldn't
yeah.
want to go in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go in there either.
Fuck
Because
no.
just, I feel like sometimes just the thought is enough to make you restless. You know,
Exactly.
just the thought of being like, oh, there could be a ghost where I'm at. It's enough to be like, oh, every sound, every creak. I
Yeah.
can't sleep in a situation like that.
Dude, have you seen the picture of the purported Amityville ghost, like the little boy ghost?
Is it the one like behind some stairs or something?
Yeah,
Ooh, I've seen it.
the ghost boy. Fuck, dude. That's one of the creepiest
Amityville
photos ever.
ghost. I'm looking it up just to see it again. I'm hurting myself. Shouldn't do this. Oh yeah, there it is. Ooh,
Oh,
oof, oof,
so creepy,
oof.
dude. That's a
Ugh,
that's a creepy ass photo.
yeah, ugh, ugh.
The
It
not
gives
the
me shivers.
Yeah, the non zoomed out version is way scarier than the zoomed in version too, where you just see
Yeah,
those little eyes like in the corner of the off to the side of the screen. Fuck,
yeah,
dude. So scary. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
I'm still looking at it. Ugh, it's so creepy.
yeah. That photo scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, oof, oof. Just looking at it just gives you shivers. Just looking at that shit.
Yeah, I remember my going back to the religion thing. I remember when I was in when I was like 10, 11 years old, in the Lutheran church, we did catechism, which was basically a 2-year course where it was like every Sunday we'd have like 1 or 2 hours of Bible study, and then you get
Hmm.
confirmed in the church or whatever at the end of it all.
Were you eventually confirmed?
Yeah, I was, but I remember like the professor used to always just he was like a preacher, and he used to always just shit on evolution and stuff, and he talked about Neanderthals one class, and he was like, huh, those scientists, I mean, you just dig up some deformed skeleton and you call it a Neanderthal, what's that? Like,
Hmm.
how frustrating must that be to be a scientist who's just spent their whole fucking life researching this stuff, and some preacher tells you that you can't tell the difference between a deformed skeleton and the skeleton of a different species of human. Like,
Hmm.
fuck, dude. But there's a reason that in that scenario, like, again, you were talking about the aliens as a smoking gun. I think that is the smoking gun for there being
Hmm.
no Adam and Eve,
Hmm.
And if there's no Adam and Eve, there's no original sin and no reason for Jesus, and that it just falls apart. Like that to me, the fact that there were other species of human beings, like
Hmm.
that's a smoking gun for me. I mean, it doesn't completely disprove the entire religion, but to me, it's just like so maybe smoking gun's not the right word. To me, it's a very eyebrow raising thing where it's just like,
Hmm.
okay, so there were these other species of human, and I'm like, I definitely understand, but that's why that preacher doesn't want to admit the existence of Neanderthals, because he fucking knows
Hmm.
that the logical part of his brain,
Is that something
small as
that
it
like
might be, he knows that that's a problem. So he's like
is that
saying that it's a
something
deformed person.
is that something that people are is that something that actually the church is like in conflict with? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, so there's the whole like Answers in Genesis thing. They're like a
Hmm.
creationist foundation. They run the Creation Museum. And I think it's in like Texas or New Mexico or something.
Of
But
course.
the guy who runs it debated Bill Nye. They have that. He was the guy who had that big debate with Bill Nye a few years ago: creation versus evolution.
Hmm.
Um, and I looked it up. Their whole thing is that, oh well, you know, yeah, Neanderthals and stuff existed. We can only conclude that those came after Adam and Eve, and we're like, some genetic sort of mutation, and I'm like, okay. So there is evolution? I'm confused. I thought you said there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. Like, but we know that those other species of humans came before Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
The whole thing it's not even worth talking about. It's like, fuck, dude. There's a reason scientists all fall on one side of the fucking issue.
Yeah.
And it's the same reason they all fall on the world being round issue.
Yeah, which to me that has always been like the funniest like of the like the tinfoil conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
That has always been the funniest.
I've
That has
tried
always been
to
the funniest one. It's like
yeah.
how
I've tried to watch those debates, like with flat earthers. I can never get through them. I have no
yeah,
idea what the flat earthers are even talking about.
because look, man. I've never watched like any of those. I've never watched any of those, like any of those fucking debates or anything like that. Because this is like, what is the debate? Because it's like when you're presented with so much information,
Yeah.
at some point, whoever the debater is has to just be a person who is just unwilling to accept facts. Just like,
Yeah, yeah.
convince themselves of something, which to me is like the funniest shit. When any time that I remember that B.O.B. that's like the thing with that.
Yeah, the rapper, yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That guy's a fucking flat earther.
Yeah.
So strange. So strange. How did you become one of those people?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, like if you like me, I mean, I've been I'm not trying to sound like some kind of scientist here or anything, but I have been reading about and watching, like essentially studying evolution and prehistory and paleontology and all that kind of stuff since I was 6 or 7 years old. I mean, I was just
Mm-hmm.
watching. I was always watching any dinosaur documentary I could get my hands on from at the age of 6 to like the
Mm-hmm.
age of 10 or 11. I was just gobbling them up. And if you study evolution and all of that prehistory and fossils and all of that stuff to even the just beyond a surface level extent, you
Mm-hmm.
realize that creationism is just as like dumb as flat earth. Like it's just
Right.
as out there, but it seems not quite as bad. I think people would put them in like a slightly lower tier than flat earthers, because
Mm-hmm.
the round earth seems so obvious because we have actual pictures and stuff of it. But really, dude, the evidence for evolution and everything is just as good as the evidence that the earth is round. I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make. So, um, yeah.
I was thinking.
I love that
Go ahead.
meme. I love that Family Guy moment where Peter gets like the IQ test, and then
Mm.
it's like the doctor has that chart, and it's like there's like regular people, then mentally handicapped, then below that is creationists.
That's really funny. Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, I was just like picturing the idea, like I was just putting myself in the shoes of somebody who believes the Earth to be flat, and I was just kind of like, oh, how would I react if I walked into a room that had one of those like globes of the Earth that you can like spin?
It doesn't spin, god damn it.
It's such a strange thing, man. But it always fascinates me, how people arrive at these things, like what the human psyche is, and how people just arrive at conclusions and they go like, this is what I believe. People form groups around that, being like, oh yeah, we all believe the same thing, although none of us have a basis to believe this. Because I feel like with shit like flat Earth, this is a little bit even crazier. I feel like, because it's just like everything points to the contrary,
Yeah.
everything points to the contrary,
Yeah.
so like, what are you guys doing? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
my thing with religion. It's always just kind of like, why does everything not only not support what you're saying, but also points to the contrary? Like another good
Right.
example is the whole Exodus. There's no evidence that whatsoever that there were actually large populations of Jewish slaves in Egypt, like at any point. Like
Hmm.
there may have been small groups of Semitic people that lived in Egypt at one point, which is why
Hmm.
how they knew what Egypt was, so they could write the story.
Hmm.
Um, but the whole, it's like, not only because people, they're like, oh well, we estimate that in this century, during this dynasty of Egypt, the Egyptians were, down bad because of the Exodus. And then it's like, you go look, and I like looked it up, and it's like, the archaeologists are like, that dynasty was the most prosperous dynasty in Egypt's history. And it's like, why does everything point to the exact opposite of what you're saying? you know
Yeah.
it's the same thing with like the Garden of Eden 6,000 years ago, and scientists are like, actually, the world is 6 billion years old, or 4 billion, 3 billion, something like that. It's like, why is
Yeah.
everything pointing directly
In
in
the
the
opposite
other
direction.
direction?
Yeah. Like it
Like,
sounds like all
I
this
would
is
get
our
if it,
estimation.
yeah, it's like, I would get if maybe you didn't have things that supported your side, but you also have things that support the direct opposite.
It's interesting how stuff like this just like leads to confusion. Like stuff like this just leads to mass confusion. So I remember as a kid, that's how I thought. That's how old I thought the world was. Like when I was like a little kid, because it was like, oh, this is what they're saying to me at church. So it's like this is what I believe to be the
Yeah.
truth. But then you learn something else. It's like, wait, so what's the truth? Like,
The devil
is
gave
that
me
the
those dinosaur documentaries, bro.
and it's confusing, man. It's confusing when you're a kid because it's just like, what am I? What's the truth? What am I being told?
Yeah, because you think
Unlike you,
adults
the
are
world
supposed
didn't
to
give
know
me
what they're.
dinosaur documentaries. The world gave me Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
The world gave me Goku.
Well, yeah, it is confusing because when you're a kid, the adults are supposed to be the ones who know what they're fucking talking about. But when you get older, you realize that adults are running around saying that the Earth is flat and that the 2020 election was rigged, but the 2016 one somehow wasn't, and it's just like, oh fuck, like people are just living in la la land. But I mean, I was the same. It was the same for me. Like when I was a kid, I mean, God just existed. It's like, oh, God. Yeah, God. We go to heaven when we die.
Yeah,
And then you get older, and you're like, oh, fuck. There's like other religions. People disagree on this shit. That's kind of weird.
yeah,
And then the onions, the onion starts to peel back the older you get.
right. Yeah, it's just interesting though how there's like folks that the older they get, the more like corrupt that onion becomes in the sense that it just becomes unpeelable.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's no
yeah.
peeling back this onion. This onion is done.
Yeah, it's so true. Oh,
Yeah. It's
God.
it's it's weird, man. I guess shifting a little bit of the conversation, staying in this lane that we've been, but shifting it a little bit towards film.
Yeah, let's do that.
The the biggest culprits to me of just bad movies, like the biggest culprits of bad movies are religious movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are those are the biggest culprits of all. And I say this is because even, because I want to clarify something, I guess before we move forward. And it is that, I am a all encompassing man in a way, but ultimately I am a very spiritual person. And I do believe in the existence of, like something greater than humans, without the evidence to know whether or not that's true. I
Yeah.
am a spiritual person.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
just
not
want to
gonna
clarify
judge.
that.
I'm not gonna judge you, man, either. I
Yeah.
mean,
And you know
fuck.
that about.
I
Yeah.
try.
I
I
just want
go
to
off
clarify
on
that
this.
for the audience.
Yeah, I go off on this stuff too. But I tell like when I go off about it around my my family, I also tell them, like, this. All of this being said, don't be afraid to be religious and tell me about it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bust
Yeah.
your balls about it.
Yeah. I wanted to clarify my stance for the audience if at some point it was like ambiguous.
Yeah, so I went on a ghost tour when I was in Charleston recently. It's definitely was a really good experience, and it definitely prompted me to want to do so in New Orleans, the most haunted city as well in the future. But it was like 9:30. It started, and it was a walking tour. The guy that we had, I wish I had his name handy, but he did a great job, and he kind of told us at the beginning, like, you know, we could go towards like these four different areas from the meeting spot, and kind of go through different types of ghost stories, whether it's just kind of your typical haunted ones. Go to the Provost Jail, which I forget the figure that I told you, Jake, fresh off of that, but I mean, they estimate I think 20,000 people died in the jail.
Damn, dude.
And it's supposed to be, you know, a really haunted location, and it's just because there was no like plumbing, there was no like running water, there was no sanitation. Like, I mean, it was literally people, they just throwing people in there, and there was no, you know, facilities to use the bathroom either. So I mean, it was literally just kind of like a cesspool. So they just a crazy amount of people died in there, and the tour guide was like, I won't even go in it. But
Damn.
he told us he did a paranormal investigation with some other tour guides that he knew, and spent the night overnight with like some, you know, infrared equipment and some ghost hunting equipment, and said, you know, he saw a couple things and felt like he was almost pushed down the stairs.
Damn.
In the dungeon. So he was like, I won't even drive by the dungeon anymore.
Holy shit.
Which is crazy. But he took a very historical approach to this ghost tour, and really was like, you know, did his research on, you know, the regular story, but also kind of like, you know, the history surrounding those incidents. Another thing that was interesting, so we walked by a couple different graveyards as well as like haunted buildings. And a lot of the graveyards were locked at night because I guess some of the, you know, they had like historical figures from like the Civil War and stuff. So that it's like a federal graveyard, so you can't really go in there, or cemetery. So they had it locked up. But the cool thing that he was showing, and he showed us 2 pictures of people that he had taken on tours, and they were taking photos, you know, at the gravestones throughout the tour. And he showed us one where it was like somebody a couple weeks ago had seen and took a picture that looked like there was a ghost in it.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that was, you know, real, it's hard to say, but it was a gravestone of a doctor who had ended up treating a patient and gotten smallpox from doing so. Brought it back to his family, and he survived, but his kids, all of them died.
God damn.
So the legend has it that he stands over that gravestone, watching his children, because they're all buried in like a very confined like space next to each other. So that was an interesting one.
That's dark.
And I won't take a, yeah. I mean, there was just some crazy stuff that was happened on the tour. One of the other ones was there was a hotel, and I believe it was 5 stories, and now it's currently stands 7 stories. And there's been reports of people, you know, having, you know, in the middle of the night, like people running down the halls, seeing people in, you know, like Civil War attire inside the hotel. I believe the hotel burned down at one point, and so some people were, you know, died during that. One of the ones he told specifically that kind of stuck with me was he said a lot of there's a lot of occurrences of, you know, like people banging on the door, and this one gentleman, there was a report of him opening the door after it's been banging on and putting his hands on both sides of the door, and still hearing somebody banging, like feeling somebody like banging on the door between his hands. He could feel like the vibrations. And since they added those 2 new floors, there's never been any like hauntings on those 2 floors, because those didn't exist historically. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
It definitely, I definitely would say I'm a non-believer of ghosts, a skeptic for sure. I mean, I wouldn't say there's no possibility, but I'm highly skeptical. But that tour definitely kind of rubbed off on me a little bit, and kind of got the gears turning about, like, I still don't know, but like some of this seems like, you know, he made a good case. Yeah. But the one thing I will say at the end that kind of dinked his credibility a little bit was he was saying, you know, like he had sleep paralysis, and that you know, when you're in sleep paralysis, you see like, you know, like a shadow people, you know, somebody hovering over you or something like that.
It's
and he was, Yeah, me too. I've had
Yeah.
bad sleep paralysis like the past year, like probably last fall, like winter. I had it like 6 times in like a couple
Oh,
months.
god
Yeah, it was
damn.
when we were at the mountains, like in the winter with you guys, Jake. When y'all were downstairs, Jake was snoring like so fucking loud, and I was up, and I was just no. Was it?
I think that was
I'm trying to think.
Memorial
Was
Day
it? I
weekend,
think it
wasn't
was.
it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. You were snoring, and so I went out on the couch downstairs, and like I was laying there, and I woke up on my back with sleep paralysis, and I thought my dog was laying on my chest because it just felt like there was so much like weight on me, and then all of a sudden, like almost like an exhale, the weight just kind of like just like dispersed across me. It was very strange.
Yeah.
But like he claimed sleep paralysis was something that happens because of like the shadow people, and I was like,
Mhm.
all right, I think we're grasping at straws there.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that's something else entirely. But what are you guys' thoughts and opinions on ghosts?
Well, I like you, I have like a small amount of skepticism, and it's fascinating going into a movie like the one that we're gonna talk about because I feel like that kind of feeds into it, where then you just kind of start looking at the corners of the room funny, say, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah.
I've never had any paranormal activity like experiences. I've never seen a ghost or I've never had like any kind of anything. Um, I've met people that say that they've seen ghosts, that they've seen like a spirit and stuff like that. You always fucking meet somebody like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have a
like, you
few
always
of
meet
those. Yeah, I have a few
my
of
grandma's
those.
one of them. My grandma's one of them. That's like, oh, I've seen this or seen that, or says that she's had kind of like I guess like experiences. I'm not gonna doubt my grandma, especially not on on on, on our podcast.
Yeah,
But,
no, the best thing
I
to
raised
do
my
is
eyebrow at my
to
grandma. Anyway.
yeah, the best thing to do I think is to take people at face value. I don't and assume they're not lying. They're trying to convey
Yeah,
an experience that they had. What do you
yeah.
remember any of your grandma's stories like what was her scariest one if you can remember it or her craziest
And
one?
also before
Go
you
ahead.
do that, because you were talking about kind of some people saying they've seen them, some people that they haven't seen them, it kind of triggered something on that tour. Was
Mhm.
he was saying like once you have a paranormal experience, it almost like opens a third eye to where you're able to kind of see that more now.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Well,
interesting.
that to me is fascinating. And that also kind of gets into the movie. I will get into that BS later.
Yeah, yeah.
But out of her stories, the only things that I can remember is just her saying like, "Oh, I think I was walking around the room and I saw like a child in the corner, stuff like that." But not anything more detailed than like, "Oh, I saw like a small person," or and that's what everybody's stories that they have. It's usually like the people that I've talked to. It's usually stuff like that. Like, oh, I woke up and like, for instance, this one lady. I think her dad had passed away, and this is like an adult woman that I was talking to, and I was maybe 15 at the time, and she was just saying that you know like a year later or something, she just walked into a room and her dad was like there, like sitting on the couch, and they just kind of looked at each other for a bit, and then he was gone. And I was like, holy shit. And it's like you don't really, but it's like when people tell you stuff like that, you don't really know like where it's coming from.
It's a grief
Where it's like,
hallucination. People have those all the
exactly
time.
exactly because that's what I was thinking. I was like, it could just be that you're just kind of like this is how you're processing grief.
Yeah.
She took it as like a paranormal activity situation.
Yeah, those are like
But
F
that's
tier stories. When people tell ones like that, where it's like, not to like be mean to your, whoever you're talking.
bottom of the barrel. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
your grief is at the bottom.
Wait,
of the barrel
whose
of
story
the
was
ghost
this?
stories.
Whose story was this that you were talking about?
It was just a lady that I knew.
Oh yeah, well fuck her. That's not your
Not
grandma.
anybody worth
For a second, I was like your
It's
grandmother.
not anybody worth a gram of anything.
No, yeah, like those are those are like bottom of the barrel. Those are like sleep paralysis stories. It's like, these are recognized phenomenon, like we already know, exactly where these come from. There's definitely tiers where there's some where you're like, what the hell? There's like S tier ones where you're just like, I got nothing. I can't explain that, But whether no matter what they are, they're just anecdotes. We don't have enough information. But yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I have one personal experience, but I don't think it was actually a ghost. It was just like, but I have some ones that people have told me that I can tell, but mine is like the lamest one probably. But so I'll just get that one out of the way. I think I've told this before, but like basically, I was like, it was a high stress time in my life too. It was like I was having a lot of. It was like seventh grade. I was like 12 years old, and I would wake up early at like 6 a.m. to catch the bus. At like the bus came to my neighborhood at like 7.
Oh, dude, I was when I was in middle school, it was the same thing,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah. And then I wisely started carpooling with a friend like halfway through the year, but so like and it was like a high stress time because I was like I had been homeschooled fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, and then I was back in school in seventh grade. So I think I was having like some stress just like being back in school, trying to like find my place and kind of fit back in, because 3 years at that age is like 9 years now, um so it was like just trying to reacclimate to everything. It was kind of like in Captain America where he like is frozen and then he kind of comes back out at like 60 years later and he's like in the modern world, like he was like frozen during World War II and then he wakes up in the 21st century. It kind of felt like
Yeah.
that where it was just like what the hell, like all of a sudden I'm like, I go from elementary school, third grade, where basically like kids are just kids and they're talking about like freaking I don't know baseball and like Pokemon cards and Bionicle, and then like in seventh grade it's like all of a sudden people are dropping racist slurs and like cursing in
Mhm.
school and talking about sex, and it was just like what the hell is going on? Like I was like that Mr. Krabs
Mhm.
meme where everything's blurry around him.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think it was kind of a high stress time, and that like OCD kind of manifests, I think, during like high stress times. And so I was having like OCD, like dark, kind of like darker thoughts, like about the supernatural and things like that, and about like horror movie characters and just shit like that. And it was around Halloween time too. And I woke up one morning. I think I had fallen asleep with the light on, and I woke up in the morning, and my vision was really fuzzy, and I kind of look at my doorway. My door is wide open and it's just pitch black out beyond my doorway. And all of a sudden, I kind of blink a few times and then I see basically what looks like a little girl in like a white gown covered in dirt, as if she kind of like crawled out of a grave or something, kind of walk by my room, you know? Even at the time, I was like, I don't think I saw that. You know what I mean? Like even at the time, even at 12 years old, I didn't even freak out. I was like, I don't think that was real. But I do see how some people could go and tell that story and sort of maybe want to believe it was more, or their mind goes wild and they misremember things, they get confused, you know, they get some information wrong. Like memories can really bloom. You'd be surprised at like what you misremember too. They've done studies like we recently had 9/11 a few weeks ago, like um and at the actual 9/11 in 2001, I mean they've done studies on like impact event memory, and how people like don't actually, a lot of people are mistaken about where they were on 9/11 or what happened on 9/11 when they were there, and things like that. So yeah, people get confused about this shit. But the one of my favorite ghost stories that I've heard was my aunt and uncle actually told this. My great aunt, my great uncle, they they lived on they basically lived on like farms their whole life, and always just out in the countryside in upstate New York. And basically there was one house that they lived at where they kept hearing like a baby crying, essentially. Like just every night they would hear this baby crying and they didn't know where it was coming from. And I don't remember if it was like, it might have been kind of distant, like it might have been happening in like a far corner of the house or maybe even a little bit outside the house or something. But they would just every night just for months, like this baby crying, you know, and couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And then one day my uncle was in the yard, like digging, like doing some yard work, and his shovel kind of like hit something hard, and he like digs a little bit more, and then he sees this gravestone, and it's marked like, you know, October, I don't know what it was, like October 1967 till, you know, November 1967. So it was like for a baby. There's a little gravestone for a baby. And he said he basically like straightened it out, kind of like honored the grave, you know, straightened up the gravestone, maybe even put some flowers around it and stuff. And then they never heard the baby cry again. But that's the story anyway.
That's where I think some of the ghost, like, you know, encounter stuff gets interesting, where it's like where multiple people kind of, it starts lining up. Like that tour guide said, like, you know, like one of the ghosts he saw, like the first ghost he saw was like, he thought he didn't see it. Then he talked to his like dad about it, and he's like, "Oh, I've seen it too. That's like your grandmother."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It's very interesting when like different stories line up, whether that's like a term of like you know, misremembering things, or if it's like once you have kind of a couple accounts, it's interesting to try to debunk, you know, more than one account of the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I worked with a girl at Spectrum when I worked there a few years back, who when I was working in sales, she had a bunch of like ghost stories. You never know if people are just making this stuff up, or I know I said you should take people at face value, but sometimes it is like, okay, really? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm walking that back a little bit. You know, I do still believe, like, on one hand, I do still think like we should be taking people at face value and trust people that they're trying to relay an experience they honestly had, but there's always going to be that party view that's like, all right, like, are you just making shit up, you know? Like, I remember when I was a kid watching this Bigfoot documentary, and, you know, they always interview different people about like Bigfoot sightings, and there's some where it's like, okay, well, they could have seen a black bear, or maybe, you know, they could have seen just something. They could have had a stressful experience in the woods, you know? But I remember during it, like, there was this one, during the documentary, there was this one, like, father and daughter that live in the country, and they were interviewing them, and they were like, oh yeah, there's like a whole family of Bigfoots that live in our backyard, and like they come to the door sometimes asking for food, and they can speak English and shit. And it's just like, okay, like, I don't know about, are they really, what could they really be mistaken about, you know? It's like, what could really be going on? Because I don't think that's real, but you know what I mean? Like, in those cases, it's kind of like, it sounds like you're lying. So,
yeah.
But there is a girl who basically, she said, the one that I remember was like, there were like two that I remember. She said one, she said she grew up in a haunted house, basically. And that, like, she said that one night she like had a sleepover with her friend, and they both kind of like woke up in the middle of the night, and her friend started speaking in like a man's voice. Like, her friend was like another little girl, and she started speaking in like a man's, like an old man's voice. Which I'm like The Conjuring 2 or whatever, you know? And I was like, okay, I mean, I don't know. Maybe she had a sore throat. Like, there's just all of the... There's just all these things where it's like, we have to, like, there's so many other things that it could be besides a ghost, you know? And then, like, she said also that, like, she was playing outside with her friends one time, and her mom was like in the kitchen, and she could see them in the yard, like through the window. And she said she saw them like basically playing with like an adult that like wasn't really there or something, which that story I'm kind of like, okay, I mean, did you see the adult? Like, I don't get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really remember exactly like 100% what she said, but I don't know, man. So it's hard to place a lot of these. We'll never know.
It is. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember like when people at our school had a
Yeah.
thing. Like they were like, oh,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a, and, you know, they showed like a video of like somebody like on a fucking like what is it like
That
a
swing.
swing. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like, what is this? You know, 'cause even then, I remember thinking, like, what is this? Like, this could just be anybody. Like, this could
I
be like
know.
somebody from here that went on there just trying to like spook everybody, and somebody took a video of it, and now here we are. You know, it's not a
Yeah.
paranormal activity like situation. You
Yeah,
know,
I know. They were trying
like,
to act like they caught a ghost on camera. Yeah, Jack, they
yeah.
sent us like a video and it was like it was at night.
And I
I
think I
admit
have it. I think I have that video.
yeah, I probably have it somewhere,
Shit, I'm
but
gonna look it up. I'm gonna see if I have it. If I have it, I'll send it to you boys.
Okay.
it was somewhere on it was like somewhere on campus. It was at night. I'll admit like the video is it's like mildly creepy, I guess. And like way in the
I guess
shadows,
so.
you can kind of see. You can't even see the.
Just because of how fast that girl was like swinging on that thing.
That is true. It must have been a very lightweight person because that was like a.
Yeah,
It
'cause
was
they were
like a
swinging,
child
like
was
they were like
swinging.
swinging, like back and forth, back and forth.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was like 1.5 speed basically. It looked like, but yeah, it was like you couldn't even see the. You could only see the swing. It was so dark that you could only see the swing when it swung outward, and then it would just disappear into the darkness and then swing outward again. You know, and
Huh.
you could only see like the bottom half of the person maybe. But again, it's like what are we looking at? Like what is this? This doesn't prove anything, you know. And like you were talking about, Jack, you know, with like the sleep paralysis stories, those are weak, like you said. I mean, that's grasping at straws. I mean, it's like you know, these are known phenomenon. I will say the chest thing, that's interesting, like feeling like something is sitting on your chest. That's where that old paint there's like an old painting that someone painted of like someone in bed with like a demon sitting on their chest because that's what people
Yeah.
thought it was. They thought it was like an actual demon that would like, you know, come and just sit
It's
on you.
I mean that's what it felt like. It was literally I mean it wasn't a little bit of weight, it was like a pretty substantial amount to where I was like, "Oh, something's like," and I was kind of just like looking up. I was like, "Oh, something's on my chest." And I kind of like couldn't move my neck or anything, but I moved my eyes down and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's just like
Mm.
Yeah,
it
it's
was weird.
freaky.
Weird sensation.
Did you say that you've been like struggling with it lately, like more?
It was I haven't had it, you know, knock on wood, in a
Yeah,
couple months, but it was like I don't know, it seemed like it happened a couple times like in a, you know, the span of a month. And
yeah.
then I mean, I was struggling with it. I had
Huh.
one
How
of the times I was
strange.
here at the house by myself and I heard someone
Yeah,
just banging on the front door, dude. And I was like looking over to my nightstand just like, you know, trying to like I heard trying to wiggle your toes as a way to get out of it.
yeah, yeah.
Didn't
Oh,
do
dude,
shit
I
for
did
me,
that.
but I saw my phone and I was just like I just need to get to my phone to call 911. And like I couldn't move and I was just stuck there and just heard just banging. And then I had another time where I had my door open in my bedroom, man, and it was open, and I was like, same thing. I was, you know, sitting in my bed, like couldn't move, and I
Yeah.
looked, and I could have sworn I saw somebody like walk past the door, just like boom, just walk right by,
Yeah.
and I wasn't able to. It was really dark, so I wasn't really able to see like a lot of details. But I like in that moment, I was like, I got freaked out, obviously, just like a nervous system response to it. But I knew kind of, I was like, that's a hallucination. Like that's not real. Like
Yeah.
that was the one thing that helped me was like if I had our dog Oxford and he's not moving, like he would be the first one up if like something like that happened.
Oh
So that
yeah.
was kind of like a fail safe to tell me like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, I'm hearing shit or I'm seeing shit or like the alarm's on and like somebody's walking past my door, like that shit is not real. Like
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I struggled with it, but it has not
Did
been a
you?
thing for a while, and hopefully
Okay.
stays that
Did you
way.
struggle with it like before then, like before you had those like recent episodes?
No, I'd maybe had it like one or two times in my life, and then all of a sudden it was like I don't know if it was stress or what it
Yeah,
was,
because
but it's just like a
that's what I
flare
wanted
up
to
of
ask you.
just
Is
like
like, why could you attribute that to just kind of like coming up and then going? Because I mean, Jake knows this. Like, I had a period
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about
of
that.
time. Like, yeah, dude, I there was a period of time, man, where like it was like a 6 month period, dude. Yeah, everybody, we had a little bit of a technical break, but yeah, dude, when I was like 16, 17. and I had a period of like 6 months, and it might have been even a little bit longer than that, where I was having sleep paralysis. I would say maybe like, dude, 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh,
Like it
Jeez.
was like,
oh,
dude, it got like really bad,
oh.
Ugh.
and to the point where like going to sleep had started like making me like anxious. Like I
Yeah.
started feeling anxious at the thought of going to sleep because it was like really bad, dude. Because there were times where like I mean, and I started like just like doing a bunch of like looking into it, like reading up a lot of information about it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and to the point where I was like, this is happening to me so much that I should try to see if I can leave my body. I was like, it
Yeah.
was to that extent, because you hear those things, and I remember, I guess we'll get into this a little bit because I guess this also has to do with like something like the movie Insidious.
Yeah.
But dude, it just kept happening to me, and it was just every time that it would happen to me, except for like the last few times where I just kind of got a handle of it. Every time that it would happen to me, it would be such like my heart would just accelerate. Like I would just be like, God, please get me out of this, get me out of this, get me out of this. Because it's like you're just lying there in your bed. Like for me, I would just be lying on my bed, completely unable to move. And
Yep.
sometimes I wouldn't be able to open my eyes. Like
Oh, I had not had that before.
dude,
That's
and
insane.
that adds like a whole different level to it.
That's
Because
even worse, man.
at least
Oh,
when you can open at least when you can open your eyes, you can kind of make sense of things a little bit, even if you start having kind of hallucinations. Um, and I had hallucinations like the times that I would have sleep paralysis and I could open my eyes, I just would see like something that I can only describe as like a woman like dressed in black, just this kind of like
oof.
foggy figure of somebody in a dress. And I think that's also where all those like the woman in black or like the lady from the Insidious movies, I feel like that's where that comes from because that's like a common thing.
Yeah.
It's just like something where your brain creates this like black pattern that just looks like somebody in a black dress, and I would see that. But dude, the worst was just like eyes closed. I can't move my body. I can't open my eyes because then the fight for me would just be of like trying to open my eyes, just like
Oh,
trying
Yeah.
forcefully to open them. Um, because dude, when you have your eyes closed like that, you imagine anything, and it always felt to me like when I had my eyes closed like that, it always felt to me like there was something next to me, or something on me, or something like in front of my face.
Yeah.
So it would just be this like completely just kind of like powerless feeling. And just feeling like there was something there that dude, I couldn't see, I couldn't put my hands on it. And I would just again, by the latest stages of it, I started just kind of trying to, let me see if I can try to move something, a finger or something. Because then once I was able to get something going, then my body
Yeah.
would kind of be like, okay, this guy's awake. Like
Yep.
this guy's brain is awake, he's trying to do something. Um, Dude, but those were like the most terrifying times for me because it was like again, just so uncomfortable, just so
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And I would actually be like grateful the times that my mom would come and just wake me up in the mornings because she would just kind of like shake me or something, and I would be like, I'm awake. This is a day that I
Yeah.
don't wake up on my own with my body just being unable to do anything. Um, Dude, that was terrible. And I think at that time I was dealing with a lot of kind of anxiety and stress.
yeah. That's where it
It's a
comes
high
from.
school. Like I was a senior in high school at the time, and just kind of like, life. What are the next steps? How can I figure this out? And I was really stressed out because I had a lot of things like in front of me. Because at the time I was living in the Dominican Republic. That's where I'm from. For those listening who don't know. And I knew that I wanted to come back to the States and that I wanted to go to college. And I feel like I was just like dealing with a lot of stress at that time. And dude, it was just a terrible period of time.
That
Like
really
it was
sucks, man.
that dude, it
I
was
think
so weird time.
Yeah, I think like the thing that you were talking about with like your heart racing, that's probably the worst part about it is when you can
Mhm,
just feel like I mean your heart's like you just ran a 40-yard dash. Like I mean it's
mhm.
just like beating out your chest. I mean that's the worst feeling ever when you feel like you can't move.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
dude.
can't I can't fathom the eyes closed part because
Oh
I've
no,
never
dude, and
had
that's the
ever.
worst. Because then with the eyes closed part, it would just be this like thought in capital letters.
Yeah.
It's like if you put something on the screen and it takes up the whole page with like, and it was just like, there's something next to me.
Yeah.
Like, something next to me, there's something next to me, there's something next to me, and just kind of freaking the fuck out and just being, God, please. Just like in my head being like, please help me. It's like, what can I do? Like, dude, man, I haven't had like sleep paralysis now, I think in like no, in like 7, 8 years. And I thank God every day, dude, about that shit because that's rough, bro.
Yeah.
You know, that shit was rough, man.
Yeah, it's awful. I've
Um,
only had it once. It was like 8 years ago. It was in our dorm, and
I
I
remember it was like that time they were like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It was during the day though. I don't know if it's at the time you're thinking of. That time I just had a nightmare, but
Oh, okay. Oh no, I think there was another time. Yeah, go ahead and tell it.
yeah, yeah. It was like at the beginning of the school year. But yeah, I just like I had basically pulled an all-nighter like the night before, and then it stayed up all day. And so then I went to I slept fine though that night, but then the next day I took a nap during the day. And that's when it happened. I like woke up and I couldn't move for like it was like 10 seconds though. And I was
Yeah,
staring I was looking right at you, like you were just at your desk, like on your computer, and then I just went like,
yeah.
"Ugh!" Yeah, it's awful. I don't think I've had like little tiny like like 1 second experiences of it where it's like
Mhm.
there's like a slight delay like from when I wake up. Usually if I'm like willing myself out of a nightmare or something, like a nightmare where I'm back with my ex, for example, then
Yeah.
I'll then I'll like force myself I'll kind of like pull myself out of the nightmare, and then maybe sometimes with the like a nightmare, like I'll wake up and like maybe for a half second it's like I can't really move, and then I'll like kind of jump a little bit, but that barely counts, and that's
Yeah.
not really that distressing at all.
Dude, it's strange with me because I think that I've had kind of like a change where, part of me not having sleep paralysis as much, um, also kind of correlated with like me not having very vivid dreams anymore. Like I stopped having like vivid dreams. Like I don't have vivid dreams anymore. I actually had one like the other day for the first time like in a while, and it was a
Yeah.
nightmare that where somebody was like shooting at me. um,
Damn.
but dude, there's a correlation to this because I used to have like very vivid dreams to the point where I would feel a lot of the time I would feel like, dude, it was to this extent. Like I would wake up, like let's say I was having like a dream, right? And in the dream I was like riding a dragon. I could wake up, maybe go use the restroom, go back to bed, and just go back to that dream
Yeah. Yeah.
as if nothing happened. And I was able to I remember that, dude, I've had dreams and I've had experiences in the past where I've had like a level of input on my dreams, where I would be like, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then in the dream I would like do it. So I've had that, I've had like a weird level of like I am in control of some aspects of my dream. And
Mm.
that was in the past. And I think like something with the way in which I was messing with my own sleep, or maybe with the way in which I was like messing with my own brain, topped with like all the anxiety and stress I had at the time. I think that really probably led to that like strong, long, persistent like episodes of sleep paralysis. Because I was just like messing with my dreams, and like I said to you guys, like since I was like stuck in the sleep paralysis stages, I also then got into this thought of being like, if I was like, what if I can do something? I started looking into like that whole kind of like astral meditate, like astral projection
Mm.
bullshit, and I was like, I could maybe see if I can leave my own body.
That would be insane.
Dude, I was unsuccessful, but that's the thing because I had seen shit. I had seen shit like that, where it was like movies or a TV episode of a
Yeah.
show where it's like about the person astral projecting and like leaving their body. And my thought was, at the time, and it's a movie that we're going to talk about kind of deals with this. It's like, well, what happens if you leave your own body? It's like maybe something else can take your place. Maybe if there's like ghosts, like maybe, it's like maybe when I'm in sleep paralysis and I see shadows, maybe they're just spirits that are inhabiting this realm, but I can only access them with my brain. It's like in this like sleep, like
hallucinatory state of being, you know. So
Yeah.
it's like a lot of weird thoughts, you know, the kind of thoughts that then lead to fucking movies like Insidious and shit like that.
Insidious was a great idea with that.
Oh,
Yeah.
such a good idea. 'Cause there's got to be a lot of people that can relate to that
Oh, dude, yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
I
You
knew
know,
it.
feeling like that out of body experience. One more question I had, Edward, because I've had this experience with sleep paralysis. Have you ever had a nested dream inside sleep paralysis? Because I had one time where I was in sleep paralysis and I fell back asleep and I was walking around and I looked at my watch to make sure I was awake, and then snap of a fingers back in sleep paralysis on the bed.
Yes, dude, yes. And I think, and this is actually the last time I had sleep paralysis. Jake knows this.
Yeah, I remember this, dude. You
Like,
told me
this is
about
the
this.
this is the very last time I had sleep paralysis. This was second year of college for us. This is the last time I had it. And I'm saying this because what you said is what was happening to me.
Was this when we were
where-
going to see the Venom movie?
Yes.
Oh, that was third year, but yeah, same
Oh
difference.
yeah, that was the third year really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so third year was the last time I had a sleep paralysis, which I think was like 5 years ago, or like 4 or 5 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
6 now.
yeah, so that was the last time I had sleep paralysis. Dude, this was a situation where I went to sleep. I don't even remember like the very specifics of this dream anymore. Jake might even be able to remember this better than me. We had all agreed. This was literally like February of I think 2019. We had all agreed that we were all going to see Venom.
No, it was
You know,
October.
shit.
Venom came out in October.
Really?
Yeah.
October that year? Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Dude, look it up. I want you to make sure that's the
Yeah,
case.
Venom 2018. Release date October 5th, 2018.
Okay, so that's when it was. 'Cause we went to the movie theater to see. Dude, it was this weird fucking thing where we had agreed to go see that movie, and I remember I was just like, I'm gonna go and take a nap, you know. And we were gonna see that movie like at 7 that day.
Yeah.
Like Jake and I and our former roommate James and his partner at the time, like we're all gonna go see that movie, and just out to James. I went to take like a nap, bro. I don't even remember how long this nap was, but the context of the nap was that I was in this situation where I was like lost somewhere, or I had to like be going through something, and at some point in the dream, I kept basically getting to this like stage where I was like, oh, it's really late and we have to fucking go and see Venom. You know, like that was always how the dream ended. And so in the dream, I would wake up, you know, and then I was like, oh, I'm awake, you know. And instead of being able to like do anything about it, it would just go back to this loop of being like, oh shit, but I'm in a dream, you know. And then I would live out this dream again. And then at the end of the dream, it would be again like, oh fuck, I have to see Venom, you know. And then I would
Damn.
wake up again, dude. So it was this thing, dude.
Oh
I
my
don't.
god.
It was like this like limbo that I was stuck in, where I forget like like dude. It was like one of those dreams where I woke up drenched in sweat when I was actually able to get out of it. And the whole dream, the whole time, I was like, please, please wake up, get me out of this. Like, get me out of this. And the whole dream, it was like this weird anxiety dream that would keep ending with like, I have to fucking go and see Venom and waking up and then keep and doing it and doing it and doing it. Dude, it was
Wow.
insane. Do you remember more specifics than that? I don't remember any more than that.
Me?
Yeah.
No. I think I remember. Yeah, you said like in the dream at one point, and what it was like maybe the 4th or 5th time you woke up, you realized like this was, you know, like gonna keep going, and so you started in the dream like bashing your head against the floor or something like that, or something, or
Yeah, I
hammering
don't
the
remember.
hammering the floor or something, or like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Damn.
it sounded awful. Like I remember it freaked me out. I was like, "Oh fuck, that sounds
Yeah.
terrible." I hope
Dude,
that
it
doesn't
was
happen to
terrible.
me.
Yeah, it was terrible because it felt like I was like in a coma, you know, where it
Ugh.
was just like, what can I do? What can I do to get out of this?
I've
Yeah.
heard some scary stories about that too, like coma dreams. Like I heard one where it was like this stuff ain't. This stuff is like not even fun scary. This is just like scary to me too. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about like sleep and comas and stuff like that where it's like this ain't fun anymore. Like telling stories about ghosts or like murderous guys with axes is like fun, but like stuff where it's like sleep paralysis or being trapped in a coma, like that to me that's like what scares me. That's why like Freddy Krueger, that whole idea is scary, man, cuz like
Oh yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
the whole idea that this guy can just you have to go to sleep and this guy's going to
Exactly.
be there, like, dude, that shit is scary, man.
Yeah, that's the thing about sleep and like dreams and stuff is like, I mean, no matter what, like you're never gonna escape it. Like you're gonna have to go to sleep. Like you're gonna have a possibility of having a dream.